thousands of New York jobs to Texas. Brutal. By Omar's talk show. Love the word brutal, but not in this case. Well, let's get this show started, huh? All right.
Sachs CEO is finally speaking on why he is moving thousands of New York jobs to Texas. What he said is brutal. Hey everyone, welcome. I need you to think about something for a second. Imagine you show up to work one morning.
Right.
Your employer sends you a message, not a pink slip, not a performance review, a choice. Move to Texas or you're done here. No negotiation, no FaceTime, no appeal. Pack up your life, pack up your desk. Now imagine that employer isn't some struggling startup burning through its last runway. It's Goldman Sachs, one of the most powerful financial institutions in human history. A firm with 156 years of Wall Street DNA, born and built in New York. It is documented. If you care at all about what's happening in New York, it should stop you cold. Because this isn't just another story about one bank reshuffling its org chart. This is Goldman Sachs, Wall Street Royal, making a $500 million bet that New York's best days are behind it. And Texas, just getting started. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why Solomon said, why the economics are driving this, what it means for anyone whose future is...
Just keep in mind, behind all of this, all the big old families of banking, they're going to be going up against all the new families of tech. And that's going to cause a lot of fracturing. We might break down into like city-states, essentially, where all the states just become their own little nations. And who's going to do it first? Texas. You know, they're the only ones that really have solid protections built in to their agreement to become a state. It's all told to you when you're a child growing up in Texas. They're all about that Texas state history. And they'll be their own country once again.
Tied to that city. So let's get into it. Let's start with Goldman Sachs, actually. Because the mechanism matters as much as the decision itself. So in the fourth quarter of 2024, Goldman quietly launched an internal initiative. There's no press conference, no announcement to the markets. Instead, according to Bloomberg, Fortune managers across the firm started receiving the message, the plan, informally nicknamed Project Voyage. It was straightforward in the most uncomfortable way possible. Goldman wanted to shift significant portions of its management layer out of its major hubs, New York, London, into growing locations, Dallas, Texas, Salt Lake City, Utah. The message, as Bloomberg framed it, it could become part of a request, part ultimatum. We need you somewhere else, and it's not here. And this wasn't a voluntary transfer program. It was a generous package with a guaranteed return. The initiative spans multiple divisions: global banking and markets, engineering, marketing, the people receiving this message are vice presidents, managing directors, career professionals who built their lives around being in New York. And the choice being handed to them is stark: relocate or leave the company. Think about what it takes for a firm like Goldman Sachs to send that kind of a message to people who built their careers there. This is a structural reorganization of where Goldman believes its future is. David Solomon didn't arrive at this decision overnight. He's been saying exactly why out loud for years and years. In December 2022, Solomon stood before hundreds of members of the Dallas Citizens Council, one of the most powerful civic organizations in Texas alone, and spoke publicly for the first time about why Goldman's $500 billion campus was landing.
Jump in the chat if you want.
His answer was direct. It's about hiring engineers, he said. Then he went further. One of the things that makes Texas so incredible is that you have an incredible CEO of Goldman Sachs standing in Dallas, telling a room full of Texas civic leaders that their state produces better talent in New York at the same price. He didn't lead with costs. He didn't lead with taxes. He said Texas is building a workforce pipeline that New York cannot match. Second year, Solomon called Dallas's firm the second most significant hub globally. Then January 2025, months before Project Voyage became public,
wind, oil,
Solomon
solar.
told investors the firm was expanding in strategic locations, calibrating out the pyramid structure. At that time, phrase slid past observers. And looking back, The signal Goldman's pyramid had grown too top-heavy, too expensive cities. He was already planning to reshape it. This is not a CEO just reacting to pressure. This is a CEO who studied the map, who's made a decision, and he's now executing. The money confirms everything. Goldman Sachs is building a 2-building campus at 2323 Northfield Street in Uptown Dallas. 800,000 square feet, 5,000 employees committed by agreement, with the city of Dallas and an average base salary of $99,000. And when it opens in 2028, it will be Goldman Sachs' second largest corporate operation on the planet. That's only behind Manhattan and its headquarters. Meanwhile, Goldman has already chose 4,600 employees in the Dallas area. The Manhattan headcount, by contrast, has flatlined for years, even as the firm continues to hire. They're now one growing city and holding the other still. The rent numbers really explain why this is. See, office space...
The rent numbers are so messed up in New York. And it's just overall cost of living in New York right now. Zoran and everything. The rules are changing. Taxes are changing. If you got a lot of money, I wouldn't want to be there anymore. It's going to be turned into a little ghetto state, fortunately. You got to be careful, man. They're not joking around.
Manhattan's financial district runs over $60 per square foot. And Dallas is about 32. In Salt Lake City, where Goldman leases nearly 375,000 square feet, it's around 25.5. For a firm managing 5.2 million
Texas,
square
you
feet,
have such a huge
the real
population
estate
and a
globally
pipeline
that
of young talent constantly.
differential compounds every single quarter into hundreds of millions of dollars. And that's a plan. It predates Project Voyage at Goldman's very first investor day back in 2020. The firm announced a goal of trimming $1.3 billion in operating costs, partly relocating employees to lower cost markets. Project Voyage is not a new strategy, it's a full throttle acceleration, one that's already running. And the Dallas campus is simply where the conviction became concrete. Here's a number that should have made front.
There's a reason that all these guys, all these big companies in California and New York are moving to Texas, guys. Like, Texas operates on its own level. They do what they want. They tell the feds to kind of stay away, leave us alone. You know, they've got their own rules, their own structures, and it works. Amazing schools, excellent sports programs. I'm not talking professional. I'm just talking about just growing up, youth in general. Watch my youth sports video I just did. Yeah, it's crazy. Texas is definitely going to be good. If our country shatters, they're going to be their own country again, and they're not going to look back.
Pages everywhere, but somehow it barely registered in 2024. See, Texas surpassed New York in the financial sector employment. 519,000 workers. New York was 500,007. And the state defined global banking for a century. But ambitious young people moved there because it was simply where finance happened. No longer leads the country in finance jobs as Texas does.
I think
and it's not
Goldman's
just Goldman.
lining up with all the
JP
tech
Morgan
companies,
Chase,
if we're being
7,000
real.
more employees in Texas than it does in New York.
It's going to be tech first bankers.
New York City's financial sector
saying
shrank
goodbye to the bankers right now.
8,400
They're
jobs
moving
in just the first 8 months of 2024 alone. In between 2020 and 2024, 892
They're
companies
picking their
left
side.
New York,
They're moving their chess pieces now.
Income. But the infrastructure moves are what signal permanence. Because in early 2026, New York Stock Exchange Texas launched in Dallas. And the Texas Stock Exchange, backed by over $160 million from major investment firms, is set to begin trading at the end of 2026. So NASDAQ has announced plans for Texas Exchange as well. And you don't build 3 major stock exchanges in a city where you think things are slowing down, do you? You build them where you believe financial gravity is moving. And between 2015 2024, at least 314 companies moved their headquarters to Texas Financial Services.
They're moving
they start
away from
recruiting in Texas now, and they outpace New York
legacy
with
financial
9%
system.
more job listings in 2025. This is no longer a trend. A trend is directional. This is a transfer. Now let's follow the money all the way to the individual level. Because here's where it actually gets personal. Texas has no corporate tax, no state income tax. It's constitutionally banned financial transaction taxes and built specialized commercial courts for
What do you
complex
expect?
business litigation. And these are not accidents. They're deliberate structural decisions, and they're designed to attract the kind of capital that companies
Austin.
that New York is now losing. For Goldman employees, the math is even more direct. New York City's cost of living is about 130%
We rolled into that jungle.
above national
I
average.
mean, it'd be
The median
fun
rent
for a
in
little
Manhattan
while.
nearly runs $8,000 a month. Dallas cost of living is 2% above the national average. So median
Wow.
rent there is under, $1,500. A Goldman
Wow.
vice president making
That's
$175K in
incredible.
New York is effectively earning far less than the same person doing the
Yes.
same job in Dallas. And once taxes, basic living costs are factored out, the relocation isn't a sacrifice for everyone receiving that message. For many of
Making
them,
money.
it's a quiet raise. And here's
Yes.
when it turns alarming for New York,
Making less, but
specifically
they're
in March
technically
2026.
making more. Huh.
Moody's changed its credit
Win-win
outlook
for everybody.
on New York City from stable to negative. The reason projected, spending exceeded revenues over the next 4 years. New York proposed its budget for fiscal year of 2027 is a record $127 billion.
Whoa.
A significant share of it depends on Wall Street's bonus
That's so
season,
much money.
generating tax revenue it historically has. But the firms generating those bonuses are building their futures elsewhere. The city has made itself structurally dependent on the very companies it happens to be pricing out. So what is New York's response to all of this? This part should frustrate you the most. The political environment in New York has moved in a direction that has alarmed financial leaders. With Mayor Mamdani in office
He's
and
so
proposed
mad.
tax and rent policies generating significant concern. Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson publicly predicted an avalanche of finance firms departing New York. Connecticut's government warned that Mamdani's agenda, it could destabilize the broader regional financial ecosystem. And here's the brutal irony. Every time a
fall of
major
the
firm
East
shifts
Coast has
thousands of
begun.
jobs to Dallas, New York
A lot of
loses
people
tax
that don't know
revenue
how
to cover the
to
gap.
live, don't have jobs.
The city
can't pay for
raises
their
costs
rent.
on whoever remains.
It's gonna
And the
be a
higher the
compounding
taxes,
problem.
higher fees, more regulatory burden, which creates more incentive for the next firm to run the same math. Goldman
The airports are
ran
not nice.
and started their own Project Voyage. And this is the exact cycle that hollowed out Illinois over the course of a decade, and it does not reverse easily. Once it starts, Texas did not beat New York by accident. They made deliberate structural choices constitutionally, banning financial transaction taxes, creating efficient courts, building out their educational infrastructure. As one senior Dallas financial official put it, it's not just the tax regime, it's permitting decisions right now, asking speed. New York cannot compete on those terms fundamentally.
No.
It's changing its financial relationship with business right now. There's no sign it intends to. So before we pull back the big picture, let's make this real for a second. Picture a Goldman vice president in their early 40s. The partner has a job in the city. Their parents are nearby. They've built a life woven into New York in the way that only a decade and a half
Subway's
of real roots
disgusting.
can create. And then
Driving
the
is a
message arrives.
nightmare.
Dallas or Salt Lake City, decided by the end of the quarter. The cruelty here isn't that Goldman is making the business decision. They are, and it's rational. The cruelty is it forces a person to choose between the career they built and the life they built. And those things are no longer the same place. The moment multiplied across thousands of people and dozens of divisions. And this is what a city losing
People
its
have
economic
migrated for thousands
foundation
of years.
actually looks like
The
from
grass is
the
greenner.
inside
Oh, there's no
up.
grass in
It's
New
all
York.
right. Let's bring this all home. We started with a hypothetical move to Texas, or you're done. And it turns out that isn't really hypothetical anymore. That's an actual message Goldman Sachs is sending to thousands of people who just built their careers at
That's
one
fine.
of the most storied institutions in American financial history. But here's the bottom line of all this. Goldman Sachs is not leaving New York because of one bad quarter or one policy dispute. They're leaving because the math stopped working. The rent is double. The taxes are higher. The town pipeline has a better option.
Don't
And when
blame 'em.
David Solomon stood in Dallas and said Texas produces an incredible pipeline of young talent, he wasn't being diplomatic. He was telling you the exactly what his cost models already show. Texas now employs more people in financial services than New York. Three
Fresher
major
food.
stock exchanges are being built in
Better
Dallas.
beef.
Moody's has already put up New York City's credit on negative watch. On the ground, it's shifted. This isn't a partisan issue. It's just a math issue. And the math does not care about prestige or tradition,
No.
or how many movies have been set in Wall Street. Doesn't care. It follows the numbers, and right now the numbers follow Texas. But I want to hear from you. Are you in
God
New York
bless
right
Texas.
now? Are you seeing this up close? If you're in Dallas, are you watching this play out in your backyard?
I
Guys,
think this
drop
is
it in
really
the comments
cool, man.
below. If this
Yeah.
video gave you something to think about, hit that like button, subscribe, make sure you don't miss what's coming next. Thanks for watching. Stay in.
All right, yeah, guys, go to Omar's talk show. Throw him a sub and a like. Do the same for me if you could. Hit that algorithm. You know, what do you guys think about this? I truly think that we're going to have a fractured society by 2030, and Texas is going to become its own country again. You know, they got plenty of people for their own military, and you know, they got the remnants of the U.S. If that's the case, if we fall apart, I don't want that to happen, but it's a huge possibility right now. It's just something to consider and keep your mind on. There's money to be made in Texas, that's for sure, whatever kind of job you do. Unless you're a server. That's rough going. But, yeah. Very cool stuff. I feel like I learned something today. This is just one of those dominoes coming in New York. It's been rolling this way for a while. Chess is being played. You know, they're moving away from the Rothschilds' control, I guess. I don't know. Unless they're totally, you know, entrenched with them too. I wouldn't be surprised. Goldman Sachs. Legacy company themselves. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Peace out.